You're listening to The Big Lift, the podcast of Web Trends Optimize, the CRO solution that enables marketers and developers to maximize the ROI on their digital properties. Web Trends Optimize is a powerful, feature-rich and easy-to-use solution, all delivered within a fixed-price contract with no additional cost for increased functionality ever. During these podcasts, we meet some of the key influencers within the marketing and conversion world to understand their roles and examine their challenges. In today's podcast, we take a look at how it's possible to run a successful business and at the same time focus attention on giving something back to society. I'm in discussion with Gavin Willis, founder and CEO at Search7, an award-winning marketing agency that has a passion for changing the way they do search and client services. But unlike many companies who concentrate on turnover and profit, Gavin also sees his company as a vehicle to make a difference to charities and community projects. Gavin, you founded Search7 over 12 years ago, focused primarily on SEO and search media. Tell me, in a few brief moments, what sets you apart from your competition?
Hi John, thanks for having me on. So we specialise in SEO and paid media as a search marketing agency. I think what sets us apart is probably our kind of charity ethos and our approach to work. We're kind of more than just an agency that just specialises in the services that we do and delivering a great customer service, but we try and kind of focus on CSR, we focus on our community. And for me, I guess the reason why I started the business was to use the agency as a vehicle for good. So we set the business up in 2011. We called it Search7, so obviously search marketing, but also the 7 represents, we give 7% of our profits back to charity through fundraising, through direct donations. And we kind of make that a big thing. It's kind of built into the DNA of the business. And we find that a lot of clients love to be aligned to us and our ethos, and it helps us in many ways, and also team retention and attraction as well. So that's kind of how I feel we kind of are a bit different to others. Just kind of building on that kind of community aspect, really.
You also mention on your website that you're remote first. Could you tell me your thoughts on why you believe this to be important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it kind of happened during the pandemic, so we haven't been remote first for 12 years. It was more in 2020. We kind of had the opportunity, as everyone did, to not really be working in an office all the time. So we kind of scaled that down a little bit, and then just felt as if it was going to be a good decision to go fully remote. We believe in a strong people culture. We believe in freedom, trust, autonomy within the team. We don't micromanage. We give people the trust and freedom to work where they want, when they want. But the other side to it is that in Brighton, there are some really big digital agencies, and in the past, when people worked for us, they kind of started doing really good work and started to be known a little bit on LinkedIn, and they kind of got snapped up pretty quickly after a couple of years. So we thought, right, we need to try and make sure our people culture is so good that people won't leave, but also let's try and get people from outside of Brighton as well. So it works really well. It's also important, to focus on people's well-being, because you can be on your own a lot and be on calls all day on the kind of laptop. But we kind of make sure we have co-working days. We have 3 venues across the south, in Brighton, London and Kent. We also have socials where we meet up every other month in person as well. And obviously we have kind of face-to-face client meetings too. So it's important to make sure that we're checking in on everyone, make sure well-being is kind of paramount, and have those opportunities to meet up as well.
I can obviously hear from the seagulls that you're actually talking to me from Brighton, so hopefully it's nice and bright down there like it is where I'm recording.
It is, yeah. It's lovely today.
Let's just go back to the CSR, or Corporate Social Responsibility, to give it its full name.
Yeah.
A lot of people may have just heard of the initial CSR and have their own kind of view of what it is, but in a kind of a snapshot, what would you say that CSR is all about? Have you got a brief description that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, CSR is kind of that responsibility to think beyond profit and think about community, think about social impact, even think about sustainability. It's those things that, companies and individuals, we're all kind of responsible in many ways. We can all play a part in kind of making people's lives better. So for me, it's kind of CSR is kind of how can your company be a force for good? How can you put in place the right policies and processes to engage your team and just work on things together where you can be more than just delivering a service to a client, but actually do a lot of good, and it brings lots of benefits, obviously, to the community and to the environment. But also, there's a lot of people these days that are leaving uni that are looking for agencies that are strong on their CSR. I mean, we've been doing it since 2011, and I didn't even know what CSR was back then. I didn't even hear of corporate fundraising or B Corp. None of those things were there. It's just something that I wanted to do and just have that kind of social impact element to how we work. But I guess in the last few years, there's been a few studies. I think one by Deloitte in 2019, I think it was, or 2020, which talks about how companies, when they're looking to work with a say an agency like us, they do look at how you treat your team. They look at how you treat your environment. They look at how you engage with your community as well. So these are becoming metrics as part of the buying decision as well, which I never knew was a thing until the last couple of years. But from day one, we just knew that being an agency for good and focusing on giving back was just a really important thing. And it's only been more the last 3 or 4 years where it's become more of a wider talking point, predominantly because of the pandemic and people focusing on charity and sustainability a lot more. But yeah, that's a bit more of an overview to CSR and kind of our kind of approach to it, really.
So yeah, I think it has matured over the intervening years, because in the early days, CSR wasn't really known as CSR at those points. It was much more corporate social responsibility, was about preventing morally reprehensible policies, which was things about making sure you file your taxes, making sure you treat your employees right and all that sort of thing. So I think it has moved on quite substantially. And I think that it now is becoming more part of more companies' agendas, if you like. But when you speak to new clients, does CSR come into the conversation? If it does, at what point does it come into the conversation?
Yes, that's a really good point, actually, John. So a lot of clients won't specifically say, what is your CSR policy? What do you do to help charities? But I think for us, we make a point of letting the client know who we are and what we stand for. So when we get to the end of, say, of a proposal deck or a face-to-face meeting, we might then talk about, oh, by the way, this is something a bit more about us that you might like to know. We also give back 10% of our profits to charity through fundraising. Here's some images from some of our events on how we build community. We also host partner events, people that run other agencies, and we do like a charity raffle at those events as well. So we like to kind of showcase what we stand for and how we embed it into our business. And like I said before, a lot of clients now kind of are looking to be more aligned with their agencies on how they behave, how they think about environment and social impact, how they look after their team. So we don't always get it proactively, the clients asking those questions, but we know that it is a key thing that they're probably looking for as well. So, and we don't hide from the fact that, we talk about what it is we do because we do it. We're not one of these companies that say we do all these things and don't deliver. We actually do walk the walk as well. So, and it also is good to kind of be an ambassador for social change and social impact by kind of maybe inspiring people in a way by telling them, like, this is the kind of stuff that we've been up to. And most of the time, the reaction from our prospective clients is, wow, that's great. We'd love to get involved and sponsor an event or come along and, support you. So, it does tick a lot of boxes. But first and foremost, it's kind of we're doing it for the right reasons since day one. But also, we don't hide away from telling people about what we do, because we do feel that it does help with that alignment in terms of them having the same ethos as us.
Do you think that you actually strongly influence your clients to think more deeply about CSR, or has it always been on their agenda, just haven't given it the focus?
Good question. I mean, we did a survey in December. We do one every year, a client kind of satisfaction survey. And we asked a question about how aligned are you to our charity ethos? And we got 10 out of 10. I mean, to be fair, we only got 15 respondents to that survey. So it wasn't huge numbers, but it shows that it does matter and they do care. I mean, a lot of them do go off and start implementing things into their own businesses, or they think of a charity of the year or how they could do match funding off the back of what we do and how we communicate it to them. So it definitely does inspire them to change things internally. And for me, been doing it for quite a while now. I do a lot of talks about CSR and how we do it at Search 7, and the feedback is great, where people are going away and kind of implementing changes in their own businesses to kind of do more good. So I don't know the exact numbers, but based on the surveys and based on people's feedback and what I'm hearing, it is having an effect.
I would have thought that implementing CSR could be done on a kind of, I suppose, little by little basis, but actually to make real impact, I would think that a number of businesses are actually going to be, I'll use the phrase gung-ho, going into it and actually proving their social credentials. Is it something that you think that businesses are changing their strategy because of your impact with regard to what you're doing with CSR?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so. Like based on the point before, I think we are seeing people making change and positive change off the back of knowing more about us as a business and how we do things. I mean, CSR also is quite widespread. You can do lots of different things, and for us, social impact and supporting charities through fundraising events is our kind of thing that we really hone in on. And we do a few of them a year, like a few different, like 3 or 4 different events a year that's focused on making a difference and bringing people together as a community to actually fundraise for lots of different charities. So we really focus on that, whereas some will really kind of dial down on, say, sustainability, environmental factors. But we've built out a CSR committee at Search 7. Everyone in the team gets £150 match funded to all of their events that they do throughout the year. And we get everyone in the team to think of new ideas for new events to make it a bit more inclusive or trying something new. Everyone kind of helps on the day to come along and volunteer and just help run the day. We don't use any event companies. So yeah, we try and do our own unique, innovative things. We don't kind of follow maybe CSR best practice, but we've kind of, I don't even know if there is a thing. I'm sure there is, but we like to do things our way in terms of like it's the S7 way, and it's kind of there's certain things that we really focus on and kind of keep along those lines.
I'm thinking in bigger organisations, Times Top 1000, etc. It's probably sitting within a domain of HR or whatever they call it these days to be able to work through this. But obviously, in the smaller companies, who is it inside the organisation that's kind of responsible for pulling this? And does it mean getting together stakeholders inside the business and even shareholders? Because I think there is some shareholder value in all of this as well.
There is. I mean, a lot of the talks I've been doing recently is about, don't just focus on profit, focus on people and purpose and profit and give them all kind of equal measures. Because I think you're right. I think you can be a profitable, successful business in that sense, in terms of financially, if you focus on your people and your purpose first. And I feel as if, because we've been doing it since day one, there's a risk of 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 2 years. So why would you risk so much of your time and energy into doing fundraising events when you should be trying to stay afloat?
Yeah.
But for me, it's well, I think we can do well as a business and do the right things as a business, and that will help us be successful financially as well as be successful in terms of what we stand for and how we're having an impact. So I try and turn that kind of thinking on its head really, and say, well, no, you can still be profitable by focusing on these things first. But you're right. I mean, going back to who's involved, being a small business is also quite good because you're quite agile and everyone gets involved in meetings. Everyone has a say on things that we can do. But also, for like big businesses, there could be a lot of hierarchy, and it feels like a lot of people at the top need to be making these decisions. But again, I feel that people can flip it around and say, well, why can't you get the team to be coming up with ideas and get them to drive change? And then it kind of filters back through to the top, and then you kind of sign things off. Like, give more responsibility, give more decision making to the team, make it more of a unit, more of a collective. Don't just keep making decisions and filter it down.
Yeah.
Change it up. And there's a book I read called Maverick by, I think it's Ricardo Semler. Kind of an old book, it's about 20, 30 years old, I think. But it's great, and it's about someone someone who takes over his dad's manufacturing business in Brazil, where it's like a huge board, loads of stakeholders, just non-stop making decisions and that filtering down. But then flipping it around and like getting the team on the floor, kind of doing all the manufacturing, getting them into different committees, coming up with ideas, and them driving change. And the fortunes they had in terms of financially was amazing. So I like reading those kind of books because it kind of inspires you to how, building that people culture, get everyone have a part to play. They are the stakeholders. They're the ones that, if they can do really good things and be motivated and also have an impact on community, that's going to make them more engaged with the company, with everything that you stand for, and they're going to help drive you forwards. So, yeah, I mean, it's just me as an owner of the business, but I'm not the one that calls the shots. I get the team. You recruit people that are better than you. I might lead on the CSR and kind of do all the kind of event management and being the kind of like the event director in a way. But we have amazing people that come up with a lot of the ideas, and I'm the one that kind of maybe communicates it on LinkedIn and networking and things. But it's a massive collective. The whole team come together and kind of drive it all forward.
So, just going back to a point that you made earlier in part of the introduction to CSR, you said that COVID was kind of helped be instrumental in these changes. What do you think it was about COVID that made people think differently?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, obviously, it was horrible for so many people. You're so unsure about what was happening. We had a lot of clients in hospitality and retail, and travel, sorry, as well. So we lost like 60% of our business overnight. So
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, it was hard. It was really hard. And we also lost half our team. We went down from 8 full time down to 4 full time. We're now up to 14. So we've had a bit of a resurgence in the team growth and the company growth since then. But it wasn't great. But for me, we just launched a brand new campaign. I think it was called the Shared 77K. It kind of really reminded me of going back to what we stand for as a business, and where people's fundraising was being cut from the government, events are being cancelled because no one can go out and do their events, and quite rightly so. And it just made me feel even stronger about what we stand for. So we did like an online quiz within a month, within about 3 weeks of the pandemic being announced. I think it was in March 2020, which had like 150 people online doing a quiz and raising money, which was amazing. And and for me, I think for me and other people, I think it just hits home. There's a lot of people struggling. There's a lot of people out there worse off. There's a lot of people out there where we can help make a difference. And you don't have to be a big business to make a big difference. You don't. Anyone can make a difference. You can bring people together. You can play your part. And I know they say that every little thing's adding up can make a big deal, and it's true. So I think a lot of people have realised that there's a lot of people during COVID and the pandemic where they're struggling, all their funding is being cut, events are being cancelled, and people are at home. A lot of people are at home on furlough, thinking about their health, thinking about walking, and just making sure they're thinking about themselves. But also, it made people think not just internally but externally about others and about. I think charity fundraising went really high during the pandemic. People started giving a lot of their money to
Mm-hmm.
charities. So I think the tide started turning. Whereas sometimes, okay, well, I'm already donating to this charity. Maybe I'll give them £1 a week, and that's it. Now people are donating to more charities. They want to do more for around CSR. They want to get involved and like volunteer at events. So there's been a really big shift, and I think the pandemic just got people thinking a lot differently about themselves and their health, but also about others as well.
Do you think if it's more of a millennial thing?
Um, I think there's, as you said earlier, like your definition of CSR a while ago was more about business acumen rather than actual social
Yeah.
responsibility in that sense. So I think the thought process and what it actually is has changed a lot. I think a lot of people that are millennials or people that are leaving college or universities, they're now looking to work for companies that are big on CSR, that give back, that think about the environment and sustainability.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be particularly useful for your business as well, because if you're talking to like-minded people about corporate social responsibility, then when it comes to looking at a new agency or wanting a pitch for some search media or whatever it might be, you're obviously already in the frame, or your name is already in the frame, so that can only be helpful. Can you describe what social impact is and how does it differ from CSR, and why is social impact important?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think for me, CSR is more about processes and things that you can do, whereas social impact is obviously the outcome of those activities. So for us, we kind of do an impact report normally 6 months after every big campaign. We don't just want to say to people, "Oh, we've done a few of these CSR activities, isn't this great?" It's more about what it's actually delivering. So we speak to all of our charities. Everyone in the team builds a rapport with their own charity contact. So it's not just raising money, handing it over. It's actually understanding their challenges, their issues, how we can get to know them, invite them to our events, and have a platform to have a voice and share their challenges and have that kind of brand awareness opportunity. But an impact report for us is like saying to everyone, well, thanks so much for playing a part in this. This is where the money's gone. So we've actually helped save a lady's life in Uganda who actually had an eye tumor, and we paid for her operation to save her life, which is really, really powerful. A resuscitation piece of equipment at the Royal Alex Hospital in Brighton. We bought some equipment there. We paid for someone on a helpline for Rise. It's a domestic abuse charity in Brighton. We paid for someone to be employed for a whole year for them to have an extra support on a helpline to just be there for people to give them that support. And there's a lot of great stories and powerful stories like that we can now share with people. So that impact is, well, how are you helping to change, to kind of impact positive change, and just showcasing what that impact has been, and also like relaying it back to what those challenges are. Like, it could be X amount of people are suffering with this, and now we've helped to kind of reduce those numbers by donating this amount of money to this kind of issue. So we try and understand what the issues are and the challenges are, and we like to just say, right, we like to raise the money, get them involved, donate it to all our great causes, and then say, right, please tell us, how are things gone, where's the money been spent, and that's the way we kind of show our impact, really.
One of the things that, when you mentioned things like CSR, social impact and things like that, a lot of the bigger organisations have been doing similar sorts of things for many years. But there's a number of those bigger organisations that are being, I suppose, tarred with the brush of either whitewashing, greenwashing, bluewashing. How do you ensure that they don't have the perception, or what you're doing doesn't have the perception of that, not necessarily to the people inside your business, but to the people outside of the business?
Yeah, it's something that's come up a lot, especially around sustainability. People saying that they're now sustainability specialists, or that's a big part of what they do, and a lot of people are being caught out because they might be, looking at their travel internally as a team, but they're kind of doing some things. We're not doing enough to really kind of say, look, this is a big deal, and we're kind of really taking this seriously. There's a few people in my industry that are calling out other companies saying, look, you can't really say that in your proposition or on your website, because you're kind of only doing this and there's another like 20 things you could be doing. So I think it's making sure that if you make a bold statement about what you want to do, you have to back it up. I guess it's like the government in general, isn't it? Saying, look, this is what we're going to do. We're setting these targets, and then not delivering. So it's easy to say you're going to do something, but you got to be bold. You got to make it happen. I think that's the main thing. And a lot of big companies, it's quite easy to do the whitewashing in the sense that they know they're in an industry that's doing wrong. I mean, they are trying to change, especially like you think about the oil and gas kind of companies, and some of them are doing really good things to really try and change things around, and it's brilliant. And some will just chuck some money towards like a campaign to show that they're kind of supporting something in that area, but still making loads of money and profits from doing things that are really harming the environment. So I think you've just got to think really seriously about what it is, who you are, and how you want to change the way you do things, and not just brush it off with a bit of like a check or a bit of money towards a campaign, but actually really think about your processes, think about your structure and your setup, and just make big changes that are going to like change things massively internally, but hopefully for the greater good. And like I said earlier, I think people's mindsets and their thinking is changing a lot. I think there's more kind of, as you said, like the younger people coming in with this real drive to enforce this change. I'm seeing that in bigger businesses where people are coming in at more kind of leadership level roles and really driving this forward and taking it seriously. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. Now, recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, you put together 7 top tips for how charity fundraising can benefit your community. And I think it'd be useful for you to be able to, I suppose, talk about that approach, because obviously it's not just about you and me, it's about all the other businesses. I mean, we as WebTrends Optimise do our own kind of CSR as well, with Sussex Cricket for Disability, etc. Perhaps you could just run through those 7 tips. If you could probably spend 5, maybe 10 minutes just going through those 7 items, it would be great.
Yeah, sure. we launched this series on LinkedIn, I think 2 weeks ago, and we're going to be covering off like one big tip that we found is really important in embedding CSR and having an impact on your community, but also how to engage your team, how to do all these great things and make it more of a community-based kind of initiative that can also boost your profits as well. The first one that we launched actually this week was called engaging your team, and that basically is getting your team involved in what you do. So what charities are you going to support? Maybe asking your team what charities are more meaningful to them, who are close to their hearts. How can you help them make a difference to their charities rather than just having one that's close to your heart as a business owner? I think that's really important, and also getting your team to come up with ideas on what events you could be doing. How can you promote it? Because we've got our own kind of social media and marketing team in house, and just getting everyone really engaged in what it is you stand for and how you can work together to really promote it, how you can give them that autonomy to build their own relationships with their own charities. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that leads on to the second point, which is engaging your community, not just the people inside your business, but presumably your employees are also engaging with their own communities and where they live and things like that. So that's probably a pretty strong hold to be able to amplify the message, I would have thought. Another thing that you mentioned is giving charities a platform. Can you just explain a little bit about what that would be?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, it's quite easy. I mean, it's still brilliant. Don't get me wrong, because charities want money more than anything. But you can hand over a check or make a donation, which is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. But for us, we want to try and get to know the charity, get to know their challenges, invite them along to our events, and this is where it's kind of giving them a platform to have a voice, so they can stand up, introduce themselves, talk about the charity in front of an audience of say anything from 80 to 300 people, depending on the events that we organise. Um, yeah, and just get the charity more kind of known, talk about some of their challenges, and on LinkedIn, just talk about the charity, talk about how we're helping them, talk about tag them on all the campaigns that we're running and all the kind of messaging. Then they can reshare it. So just giving them that platform to talk more about who they are, how we're supporting them, and just get their message out to more people.
Yeah, I think that relates also to your point four, which is sponsorship is key. It's not just the physical money part of it, as you just mentioned. It's actually the fact that you're being seen to be helping a cause, and as a result of that, money's going to come in, hopefully behind that. The other bit that I think that your business seems to do extremely well is point number 5, which is create campaigns and goals within the business, which then permeate out to the greater community. Can you tell me about what you do, how many charity initiatives you launch and things like that? You've touched on it a little bit earlier on in the conversation, but what's your kind of goal to be able to get, say for instance, is 2024, what's your goal in financial terms?
Yeah, so we kind of set targets across the 3 key pillars. So we've got people, purpose, and profit. So for us, we want to get to, what is it, a 2 million turnover agency by the end of 2026. We've given ourselves like 3 years to kind of achieve that. Um, and with that, we know that there's a lot of things we need to do. There's a lot of things we need to kind of focus on our marketing and how we grow, and we need more people alongside us to do that as well. So that's all well and good, but we know that we need to get the people culture, not get it. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So we need to kind of keep that strong. We need to make sure that we still do a lot of great work when it comes to our charity campaigns as well. So people targets we set, like where do we want to be in terms of people numbers to kind of get to that kind of turnover in the next couple of years. But the other side of it is the purpose. So, and you said about setting campaigns for different charity endeavours as well. Um, and with that, it kind of started in 2018. So that was our 7th year as a business, and being called Search 7, we thought, okay, let's do something a bit special here. So we thought, well, we've raised 17 grand in our first 6 years. Now let's kind of up the stakes, go a bit bigger. So we created a campaign called Share 7. We had 7 charities, our flagship charity, Rocking Horse Children's Hospital, and 6 others, which were all nominated by someone in the team. So that's the first year that we asked everyone in the team to choose their own charity. We hired out the Amex Stadium in Brighton. We did a really nice game of football, and we had one of the big lounges afterwards as well, which was brilliant. We did a golf day and we did a quiz night, and over that year we raised over £20,000, which was unbelievable. And since then, we kind of haven't looked back really. We've always raised between 10 and 25 grand a year now from all of our events that we host. Um, we off the back of Share 7, we then got up to around, I think, 30 or 40 grand by 2019. And then we said, okay, we're not far off 77. So let's set a target over the next few years to get up to 77 grand. We called that Share 77K. Then we had S7 100 to try and get up to 100 grand, which we hit last year. And that's the charity ball we did at the ground, which was unbelievable. We're currently sitting at around £125,000 that we've raised now for almost 50 charities, which is unbelievable. I'm so kind of a bit overwhelmed and surprised, but also since we did that big event or big campaign in 2018, we've been quite driven. We put a lot of effort into our marketing and designs and our promotion and just building that community of people that really are aligned to us. And you mentioned around sponsorship and partnership, and it's so important to get people alongside you that believe in your cause and want to be a part of it. And having amazing partners, like people that can do a website, or people that can do PR, or people that can do print, or even event management, these are all things that will cost a lot of money. So if you can help them, give them brand recognition, brand awareness, and help each other out, then it's the way to go. It's huge. And sponsorship events just don't happen without sponsorship, and these companies want to be seen to be doing more for charity. They want to be seen to be, again, like we said earlier, like changing their ways in how they approach things. So rather than spending money on maybe a bit of PR or something a bit more corporate, they're like, well, why don't I spend money on getting awareness through charity events instead? Because it's giving us the awareness in front of the right people, but it's also people that are like-minded. They think about things differently. They're more socially conscious, and it's also money going to charity rather than going to a business. So I think that really helps as well. But the next campaign we've just launched is called it won't surprise you, it's called Share 177. So we've gone from Share 7 to Share 77 to now Share 177, and we're trying to get our fundraising up to 177,000 by the end of 2026, which also marks our 15th birthday. So we've got a couple of years to do that. We're about, I think, £50,000 off, but if we keep going the way we are and raising between 15 and 20 grand a year, I think we'd do it. And it's really exciting because when you create a campaign, it gets people aligned to achieving something. So rather than just doing it event by event basis, being part of a campaign and saying we're going to be doing 6 events over the next 2 years, you're part of something as a community again, and you're building towards something. And that's been great for us.
So you've just done a fantastic job of not only covering point 5, which is creating campaigns, but also your next point, which would be show your impact. And obviously you do that in bucketfuls. Your website is talks about it a lot. Your About Us page talks about it a lot. So I think that's fine. But the final point on that, which I think is really important, is that putting the fun into fundraising. And I think that actually is quite a bringing together of people, not just inside the business, but outside the business, companies who want to sponsor you to sponsor somebody else, etc. So I think that's really important too. And I think that whole element is, it's not a stuffy thing. It's not something that you go, oh God, I've got to do this because we said we're going to do it. It's about enjoying what you're doing as well.
It is, and I always, I love supporting charities. I love doing our events. I just love it. So literally my job now, I've now moved into more of a CEO role where I've got great people like managing the day to day. I love client services. I love talking about our work with our clients. I absolutely love that, and I do that still for some accounts, and I'm involved in new business. But a couple days, I'd say, of my time is on community. It's on events. It's on making sure that we really stand by our ethos, and we're focusing on partnerships and what's the next charity event we can do, or me going out networking. I'm talking about what we do as a business in terms of services, but also about what's the next events we can got coming up, and how can you come along and be a part of it, whether as a sponsor or as a volunteer or as a attendee, if it's a golf day or a quiz night.
One of the things that comes across more than anything else in this conversation that we've been having is your enthusiasm and passion for this CSR part of your business. I know you're passionate about the people and the profitability, but this idea of actually being able to make a difference, not just to the people that you employ, but everybody else, is infectious. And I have to say that, I've really enjoyed the last 35 minutes or so having this conversation, because I think you just standing in front of somebody, or people listening to this podcast, hopefully will get that same kind of enthusiasm that I'm hearing and say, we ought to do something about this. So, Gavin, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully it will have more of an impact by the people that listen to this. But for now, I'd like to thank you for all your help and wish you all the best for your 177 target.
Thanks, John. Thank you.